Hey, what's up, fam? Hope you guys are all having a good day today. So I'm coming at you guys with a Magic Dragonite build for PvP in the Blackwood patch in the Flames chapter. So to start things off, let's go over attribute points, race, and Mundo Stone that we're using. So we're going to do 46 points of the Magicka, 18 points in the health, giving us a 29,000 max health pool and a 27,000 max Magicka pool. So for our race, we are going to be Breton. Reason being, Magicka Dragonites and Breton pretty much go hand in hand together. What a Breton race does is it reduces Magicka cost of abilities by 7%. Dragonites have really high cost abilities, so that is an amazing passive to have. Increase max Magicka by 2,000, Magicka class, another great passive to have. And then you can have increased spell resistance by 2,300. And then when you're affected with negative effect, it gets double, which is really nice as well on a Dragonite because you gotta be tanky. So to go over our Mundo Stone, we are going to be using the Atronach. What this does is it increases your Magicka recovery by 310. So now let's take a look at what sets we're rocking. So our first set we're going to be using is Willpower. What this set does is it adds 1700 max Magicka and then it adds 200 spell damage. Our next set we're going to be using is the Vedastrand's Ice Staff. What this does is when you cast Weakness of Element on a target within 15 meters, you essentially cause a beam from you and that target that deals 1200 damage every second for 10 seconds, and each time it deals damage, the damage will increase by 1%. The next set we're going to be using is Balrogs. This is our monster set. A lot of people know what this set is because it's super popular in PvP, but what it does is it adds 124 weapon and spell damage, and then when you use an ultimate ability, you gain weapon and spell damage equal to the amount of that total ultimate consumed, and your physical and spell penetration will get increased by 23 times that number. Our next set we're going to be using is Heartland Conqueror. What this set does is the 2-piece gives 124 weapon and spell damage, 3-piece adds 1000 max Magicka, 4-piece adds 1000 max stamina, and the 5-piece increases the effectiveness of your weapon traits by 100%. For our next set, we are going to be using Ring of the Trainee. We're basically just using this 1-piece set to increase our max health by 1400, because in this patch right now, having a really high max health pool is crucial, so you don't get one-shot by gank blades or really hard-hitting builds. And then for the final set we're using is going to be Malakath Band of Brutality. This is a mythic. What this does is it increases your damage done by 16%, but decreases your crit damage done by 50%. So essentially you have that 16% increase to all damage output, and then if you ever hit a crit, that crit will never get any bonus crit damage because that 50% reduction is essentially base game for crit bonus. So now let's go over exactly what the pieces are, what traits and stuff like that, glyphs. So for our main hand, we are going to be using the Inferno Staff of Willpower, and it is going to be sharpened, and you are going to be rocking a using a Befouled Weapon enchantment. The reason being is because when you deal disease damage to an opponent, you're going to also affect them with Minor Defile, which is reducing their healing, which is really big right now. For the Vedastrand, on the back row, we are going to be using the Vedastrand's Ice Staff with defending as the trait. And then this isn't going to have a glyph. Instead, you are going to be using a poison, and the poison that I like to run is the Conspicuous Poison. What this does is when you hit an enemy and it pops, you mark them for 4.3 seconds, and when they go into stealth, you can always see them. And then on top of it, it's a double dot poison that every time the dot damage ticks, you also get a healing for each damage you do, which is just a way to increase healing and sustain during fights. It's a really nice poison to use on a back bar. For the head, it's going to be Heavy Balrog's Triglyph enchantment, and the trait's going to be Sturdy. For the chest, it's going to be Heavy Heartland Conqueror with Triglyph, and then the trait's going to be Impen. For our shoulder, it's going to be Heavy Balrog's Triglyph, and the trait's going to be Impen as well. Then for our waist, it's going to be a Light Heartland Conqueror with Triglyph, and it's going to be Sturdy as the trait. And then for your hand, it's going to be Heartland Conqueror, Light, Triglyph, and the trait is going to be Sturdy as well. And then for our legs, we're going to have Heavy Heartland Conqueror, Triglyph, and this is going to be Impen. And then for the final piece on your feet, we're going to have Light Heartland Conqueror shoes. It's going to have Triglyph, and the trait is going to be Sturdy. Now for our neck and ring, these kind of go hand in hand. So the neck is the Necklace of Willpower, and the ring is Ring of Trainee. As you can see here, they both have Arcane, and they're both enchantment is reduced Magicka cost of spells. That's what you run. But preferably if you have the Transmute Crystals. I currently do not, but if you do, you want to change Arcane and Arcane to Infused to make the reduced Magicka cost of spells by 203. That number will change to 302, which is really good for Magicka Dragonites because, as stated earlier in the video, Magic Dragon Knights have a very high ability cost, like abilities cost insanely high on Magic Dragon Knights. So having that reduced cost essentially from Breton and then from these 3 infused reduced cost, it basically makes abilities a third cheaper of what they originally are, which is super nice. But if you're like me and you don't have the Transmute Crystals, Arcane works perfectly fine. You pretty much just have a little extra damage doing double Arcane. And then for the Malakath Band of Brutality, you're going to be rocking the spell damage enchantment, and then the trait is going to be infused to give you that almost 300 extra spell damage from 1 ring and 1 enchantment, which is amazing. So now that we know what all the sets are and everything, let's go over consumables and what food we'll be rocking. So I like to carry around with me Bewitched and Clockwork Citrus Fillet. Preferably this build works a lot better with Clockwork, but you can use Bewitched. But saying why I like Clockwork better is because it gives Why I say Clockwork is much better is because it gives Magicka recovery, and basically this build, as you can see in all the sets, not a single set has an increase in your Magicka recovery. I understand you're on a Dragon Knight, so sustain is pretty easy as long as you use your ultimate, as long as you have your burning abilities going, but having this extra mag recovery on top of your Mundstone being mag recovery gives you just the perfect amount to sustain and really never run out of resources. But if you feel that you don't need the extra mag recovery from Citrus Fillet, Bewitched Sugar Skulls is the next best thing to use. Now for potions, we are going to be running around with Essence of Detection for those pesky little Nightblades so we can find them, take them out. Right now, as you can see, this Essence of Detection is just a straight up detection, and then it grants Major Savagery, which doesn't help me because I'm a Magicka class. But then the bread and butter to this build is going to be Potions of Immovability, and what this does is it makes you immune to knockback and disabling effects for 8 seconds, which is amazing. And then it also gives 8,000 extra health and restores 7,500 extra Magicka. So now that we have that all out of the way, let's move over to champion points. So let's start in the red tree. We're going to put 30 points into Tumbling, reducing the cost of roll dodge. We're going to come into Survivor Spite, put 10 into Mystic Tenacity. We're going to come up to Pain's Refuge, put 50 into this tree, and then come down to the bottom left and put 50 into Sustained by Suffering. Reason being, these two trees kind of go hand in hand. They both revolve around being proc while having a negative effect on you. Now, Dragon Knights don't have any type of purge like a Templar or a Warden, so when a Dragon Knight has negative effect on them, you pretty much suffer through the negative effect. You either, if it's a dot, you have to out-heal the damage, you just have to take the slow, etc. So what these will do is when you do have a negative effect on you, you'll have 150 extra health, magic, and stamina recovery, so you'll pretty much always have that. And then for the Pain's Refuge, for every negative effect on you, it reduces the damage you take by 1% with a max of up to 20%. So say in some crazy scenario you have 20 like dots, slows, armor break, just all the debuffs on you come up to 20, you have a 20% damage reduction, which is really good. Then you're going to come out of this tree, you're going to come up to Survival Instinct and put 50 points into it, making your core combat skills cost 25% less. As stated before, Magicka Dragon Knights have a really high cost on abilities, so a lot of these cost reduction stuff stacking up together is huge for this class. Now you're going to come down here to Hero's Vigor, put 20 points into it, giving you a little extra max health boost. You're going to put 16 points into Wind Chaser, 10 points into Tireless Guardian, 20 points into Sprinter, and then for the final important thing you want to get is you want to put 50 points into Boundless Vitality, increasing your max health by 1,400. Now for these little extra trees down here that you saw me go over, if you don't have the extra CP, I've only put this stuff in here because I have extra CP, but if you are limited to CP, you want to make sure you get Boundless Vitality, you want to make sure you come into Survivor Spite, get Pain's Refuge, you want to get Sustained Suffering, and you want to get Survival Instinct. Those are the 4 that you must get, and then once you're done that, then you can start like putting extra points here, there, wherever you want to put them. So now let's go into the blue tree. So this is our damage and a little bit of tankiness tree. So we're going to start off with putting 20 points into Eldritch Insight, increasing our max Magicka, and to start off going to other trees, we're going to come into Staving Death. We're going to put 10 points into Quick Recovery, and then 50 points into Ironclad, reducing your damage taken by direct damage attacks with a total of 10%. Then from there, you're going to come down, you're going to put 50 points in the Duelist Rebuff, which reduces your damage taken by single target attacks by 2% per stage. Since you have 50 points, it's going to be a 10% damage reduction. Now you're going to come up here to Extended Might, you're going to put 20 points in the Piercing, giving you 700 extra pen. Then you're going to come up to Mastered Arms, put 50 points for a 10% increased damage done for direct damage abilities, which is like Lava Whip, the beginning state of Burning Embers, beginning state of Engulfing Flames. Pretty much almost all the damage you do will get that 10% damage increase. And then you're going to come up here and put 50 points in the Thermaturge, giving you a 10% increase to your dot damage. Essentially, your Burning Embers and your Engulfing Flames is going to mainly be affected by that. And now, as you can see, I have extra points everywhere. So again, just like in the red tree, if you have extra CP, I would come down here into Staving Death. I would put 20 points in the Elemental Aegis, 20 points in the Hardy, just to do a little bit more damage reduction trees. 10 points if you have the extra. You can put 20 points in the Tireless Discipline, a little bit into Precision, pretty much as you see fit with your extra CP. Now let's go to the green tree. So as literally in all of my videos, the green tree is not really that important for PvP. You could get away with not putting any points in here, but there is one skill that you really do want to get to. So to start things off, you're going to put 50 points in the Breakfall, reducing fall damage, 15 into Wanderer, 10 into Steadfast Enchantment, 50 into Treasure Hunter, 15 into Master Gatherer, and this is the important one. This is what I'm going to actually go over, is you want to get 100 points in the Gifted Rider, and what it does is it increases your mount speed by 2% per stage, so essentially at max it gives you a 10% mount speed increase. So why I say this is important in PvP is because say you want to get to a keep and you have your mount at 60 and then you have this on top of it 10% mount speed, your mount is moving a lot faster than the normal player who doesn't have this Gifted Rider equipped. And basically you can get to keeps and like steal a little bit of AP ticks quicker and stuff like that. But this is the main reason when you put points into the green tree. And like I said, if you really don't feel like doing it, you really don't have to. There's nothing important with the green tree for PvP. The final part of this build, let's go over skills. So we are going to start on our back bar. This is the Vedastrian Ice Staff. So our first ability is going to be Volatile Armor. This is our armor buff. It's going to increase your physical and spell resistance by 6,000. And then it's also going to deal a little bit of dot damage when you first apply it, because it bursts spikes out around you. And then when you get attacked with players who are in close to melee range, you reflect a little bit of damage. But the main important part about this is that your armor buff, you want to have it up all the time. It lasts for 20 seconds. So essentially every 20 seconds you want to refresh. And then this ability can be found in your Draconic Power tree. It's your very first ability. So for our next ability is going to be Elemental Drain. This ability can be found in the Destruction Staff tree. It's the second to last ability. And this is the ability that's going to proc your Vedastrian Staff. And then on top of it, what it actually does is it'll reduce the enemy's defenses by 6,000 physical and spell resistance, which is actually a lot and makes your abilities hit a lot harder. And then it's also going to apply Minor Magicka Steal, which will give you 168 Magicka every 1 second that you damage them. Now that's not too crazy, but in terms of Magicka recovery, what this actually gives you is 336 extra Magicka recovery, essentially, as long as you're damaging them every second. Now for our third ability is going to be Coagulating Blood. This is another Draconic Power. It's the one in the middle. It's the third ability down from the top. This is going to be our burst heal. What it does is when you use it, you're just going to get a big heal from it. You're going to also gain Major Fortitude, which increases your health recovery by 30%. But the main point of this is your health is low. You need a burst heal like a Templar has as Honor the Dead. This is basically your Honor the Dead for Magicka Dragonite. This is your big heal. So for our fourth ability is going to be Cauterize. This is in the Ardent Flame ability tree. It is the last ability. What this does is it's a heal over time essentially. And what it does is when you use the ability, as you can see here, I'm going to use it. The orb just hit me once, it healed me. Now as you can see on the timer, it's at 10 seconds. That means 5 seconds went by and I got hit with another orb. So it's just going to heal you every 5 seconds. And then it also gives it Major Prophecy, which increases your spell crit by 2600, which just means you'll have a higher chance to get crit heals while you're on the back bar. And then for the final ability, we are Vampire in this build and we are going to be using Elusive Mist. The reason being with this is because it kind of stacks with Pain's Refuge. So Elusive Mist, this removes all snares on you. It lets you move quick, no one can stun you, and you take 75% less damage while you're in it. So reason being, Pain's Refuge also gives damage reduction when you have dots on you. So while you're in this, a lot of people are going to be hitting you, a lot of people are going to be putting negative effects on you. So it already gives 75% damage reduction on top of Pain's Refuge. Say you have 10 negative effects on you while you're in it, now you have another 10% damage reduction. So now you're taking 85% damage reduction in total. And then for the ultimate on the back bar, we are going to be using Corrosive Armor. Basically this just kind of makes you like unkillable. It makes you a big ass juggernaut essentially, excuse my language, but it makes you a juggernaut, it makes you a huge juggernaut. any damage you take gets limited to 3% of your max health. And then for the 12 seconds, this is the important part on it, is while this ability is active, your direct damage abilities ignore physical and spell pen. So that the enemy player can have 50,000 spell resistance, but if you pop this and you start using your abilities on them, you would be essentially hitting them with 0 resistances, which is amazing. So now let's go to the front bar. So for our first ability, we are going to be using Degeneration. This is in the Mages Guild. It is the second ability. You do have to find lore books to level this up, but it's really easy to get Mages Guild up. What this is going to be essentially our major sorcery buff, increasing your spell damage by 20%. And it also gives a nice little dot, but the main part of this ability is it is a major sorcery buff. So for our second ability, is going to be Burning Embers. This is a dot and a heal. So what this does is you're going to put when you're fighting someone, you're going to always have this up on your opponent just to have constant pressure on them. And then after it lasts for 4 seconds, you can refresh it early if you use it again, but for as much damage as you do, you're going to heal for 75% of the total damage. So it's a nice little heal if you're fighting 3 people and you hit all 3 people with it, and then you kind of forget about it on 2 other players. Maybe your health is down to 10%, and then all of a sudden the full 14 seconds went out on that one player that you forgot about that it was left on, and then all of a sudden you're going to get this big heal from it because it's going to give you 75% of the total damage. And as you can see here, this is unbuffed, and just on the tooltip, the dot is 15,000 flame damage. If we buff up, I think it goes like 16,000. So imagine in PvP it gets cut in half. You're going to have an 8,000 damage Burning Embers, and then the heal is going to come back for right around like 6,000 little burst heal, which is going to be really nice. And that can be found in the Ardent Flame tree. It's the second ability down from the top. Now for our third ability, we are going to be using Fossilizes. This is our CC and our root. Now for our fourth ability, we are going to be using Flame Lash. This is our main spammable damage. You're just going to spam it. You're going to use it on targets all the time. This is how you're going to wither them down while you have your Burning Embers on them and Engulfing Flames. And then speaking of Engulfing Flames, our fifth ability is just that ability. And then all these abilities can be found in Ardent Flame. Flame Lash is in Ardent Flame. Engulfing Flames is in Ardent Flame tree. But the special effect of this ability compared to Burning Embers is when you have this on them, they'll take 10% increased damage from any other flame damage source. Currently, the current value says 9%, but when you're buffed up, it gets up to 10%. And now for the ultimate on the front bar is going to be Ferocious Leap. This can be found in Draconic Powers. It's the only ultimate in there. But what this does is it's a leap that gives you a shield for 30,000. In PvP, that's going to be cut in half, so it's only going to be 15,000. It's a good way to get resources back because your Battle War passive in Earth and Heart. And as always, you want to make sure you get your passives in every single class tree. You want to get passives in your Destruction Staff tree, but you do not want to get your passives in Tri-Focus. Reason being, we have an Ice Staff on the back bar. If you were to put points into that, when you block, instead of blocking costing stamina, it's going to make your block cost magicka, which means you're going to run through your magicka insanely fast. So you do not want to, you want to skip Tri-Focus when you put passives in. Then you're going to max out light armor passives, max out heavy armor passives. Only do Dark Stalker and Vampire because I am only using Vampire Stage 1 because the only reason we are in Vampire is specifically for Elusive Mist. Obviously you want to have your Assault and Support passes and then your Racial passes. So in all, that is my new Magicka Dragon Knight build for this patch. It's insanely fun. You are super tanky for no reason to be, well, there's a reason, you have a lot of damage reduction, but you are super tanky in the set you're wearing. You don't even have a single tank set. It's super fun. The damage is really high. You can constantly, in a 1v1 scenario, you pretty much never lose because of how much pressure you have. You have your Beta Strands, you have your dots, you have 1 dot, your Burning Embers, you have Engulfing for 3, you have Degeneration for 4, and then on top of it you have your stuns, which is going to guarantee a second of all your dots to hit, and then you're going to whip them at the same time you stun, and then you have your leap for a whole 18,000 damage when fully buffed. So in this build, honestly, this build has great sustain, really good damage, insane tankiness. I don't know why, but it just does. Well, I know why, because of all the damage reduction, but I hope you all enjoy, and as always, like, leave a comment, and subscribe.